What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another My Week With video. So this week I've been driving the 2025 Nissan Murano, and this is the Platinum all-wheel drive version of the Murano. And so I just reviewed the Murano back at the end of 2024. I was really impressed with it. It's a really nice vehicle. Not the best, not perfect, and like I talked about, you know, I think there's some other competitors that do kind of put this in a tough position because they offer, you know, more or the same for, you know, similar money. If you want to hear all the specs and all the other details, I will include the full review at the end of this video. You can go over and watch that if you want to hear all my thoughts on, you know, all the details of the Murano. But as far as living with it now for a week, there was a lot of things that, you know, I did really appreciate. I still love these nice, soft, zero-gravity seats. They were really great for some longer highway drives that I did. The massage function is very nice. That is something that only the Volkswagen Atlas Cross Sport can match. And, you know, I mean, it's a very basic massage, but still nice to have one nonetheless. And so, you know, I appreciated that. The Bose stereo was really nice. And as far as the usual stuff goes, it's a really, you know, nice place to be. I also really appreciated this Murano glass style trim you have here across the dashboard. It in the sunlight is really nice, and honestly I didn't know how much I would be thinking about that. I honestly kind of forgot about it, but then one day I was just in a parking lot and I was getting ready to get out of the car and I looked over and the sun was shining on it, and it just had this really cool gradient kind of effect to it, and I was like, that's actually a really nice cool little touch. You know, I appreciate the creativity in interiors and not just doing the same old stuff, but, you know, doing something a little out of the ordinary, to me, always goes a long way and shows that the designers actually, you know, really did go the extra mile. And so, you know, I really appreciate those things. Another thing that I don't think I highlighted in my review was that in addition to, you know, the on-screen controls for some of your climate functions, you know, you do have a physical button here on the left-hand side for your heated steering wheel. So instead of doing 2 taps on the screen to turn on the heated wheel, I just found myself this week just right here. It's, you know, right by where your left hand usually is anyway. Hit that, turn it on, and, you know, get your heated steering wheel nice and quick. Now, the only thing I'll say while we're talking about the heated steering wheel, it does get nice and hot pretty quickly, but then it gets too hot, and it was like so hot that I had to turn it off because it was like roasting my hands. And a lot of other heated steering wheels will allow you to leave it on and have it, you know, not be trying to toast your fingers to a crisp. And this, you know, it's one of the ones you have to turn it off, unfortunately. I'd love to see either a staged heated steering wheel like some others do with multiple levels of heat, or just, again, maybe a little less on the temperature scale and have it, you know, not get to scalding hot. You know, still, again, really nice to have the heated wheel regardless. I'd much rather just have to turn it off than not have it at all. So, you know, just one little observation there. Now, I also will say that, you know, yes, going into the screen to turn on your heated seats isn't ideal because that does take 2 taps to get those on. But I do have it on the automatic setting, and it's been really cool. I'm filming this review here in the middle of January, and it was intelligent about keeping it on, you know, having to go on immediately with the automatic mode and leaving it on for a while. And then right whenever I started feeling like, I'm getting a little too hot, I'd go into the screen and then I would see that it had already dropped down to the mid-level heating option and slowly does, you know, scale it down as you warm up. And so, yes, 2 taps in theory is annoying, but in reality, that was on auto all week. I had the physical button for my heated wheel, and between those 2 things, I never had to really mess with any of the settings as far as heated seats and heated wheel. So, you know, I'm actually again, this is one of those things whenever you live with a vehicle for a week, you kind of feel out some of those things a little bit better, and so I'm happy to report that's very well done. And I'm assuming in the summertime, you know, with that auto mode, it'll do the same for the cooled seats. Just crank those on a hot day and, you know, scale them down once the cabin gets a little bit more cool. But so yeah, I think all that stuff is really well executed. Now, I do also have 5 complaints though with the Murano here this week that weren't ideal. So I think the biggest thing is the ZF 9-speed automatic. I know everyone's so excited it finally has a regular automatic again. Everyone's happy to see the CVTs go, and I'm not the biggest fan of the CVTs either, but I have to say that Nissan's new CVT, the newest one of the past few years, not the one of old that everyone hates, but this newer one was really good and very responsive, and I had no complaints with it, honestly. And to me, from a drivability standpoint, this is probably going to be an unpopular opinion, but I think the drivability has gotten worse with the 9-speed auto. And I didn't really pick this up much on my initial review because I was driving on mostly flat-ish roads, but now accelerating up steeper hills here in southwestern Pennsylvania and just traversing the hilly roads of this area, I found myself really getting annoyed with the transmission because it does not kick down fast enough. Now that's a programming thing. You can, I'm sure, tweak the mapping there to be a little bit more responsive to kick down. Because I know in other ZF 9-speed automatics, this is a transmission that's used in Chryslers, it's used in Hondas, it's used in a bunch of different vehicles, and a lot of those I don't have quite as much of a complaint with the kick down, but with this, there it is. That's a prime example of what I've been doing all week, where I'm on the gas, I'm like, come on, where's the downshift? And then it explodes with acceleration, and then just, it's like an on-off switch with just a bunch of power, and then I don't need all that power. I just want a happy medium. And sometimes, like there, it was in the right gear to give me a happy medium, but there's been a lot of times, especially at lower speeds, turning onto a new road, especially if there's a hill involved, where I'm like, okay, I'm not getting the speed that I need to get here, and then, okay, there we go again. See, it's just not well programmed, in my opinion. It needs to be a little bit more responsive with the kick down. You got 9 gears to pick from. There should be no reason why I need to go to some insanely low gear or be in some insanely high gear. There are, I'm sure, happy medium gears here that are just not being selected for whatever reason. So I'd love to see a transmission retune on this. Another thing that I think actually kind of was exacerbated by this transmission is the all-wheel drive system, which I found is actually pretty slow to react. And I was driving on some pretty wet roads, and even a tiny bit of snow here this week, but especially in the wet, I found that, again, it's same kind of a situation where I'm accelerating, from turning onto a new road where, either the transmission does the thing where it wants to explode with power, or even just if there's a few times where I just get on the gas, maybe even a tiny bit too aggressively, the front wheels will spin. I'll even feel a little bit of a torque steer through the front, and then the traction control lights up, and then the all-wheel drive system seems to come in, or the traction control kicks in. I'm not sure, but it's just a very slow reacting all-wheel drive system. The best all-wheel drive systems, it actually just slipped there for a second. The best reacting all-wheel drive systems, you never perceive that. It's always just instantly shifting power to the rear before you have an event in the front where you're feeling a lack of grip, and they kind of do that preemptively. This is more of a reactionary, like, uh-oh, you got a problem, now let's send power to the back, instead of constantly intelligently ramping that up seamlessly in the background. So again, another area where I think some programming could probably improve the reaction time of that. Maybe they're got their hands tied as far as how fast it can react, but at least, I just would like to see that rear end be a little more present in these all-wheel drive versions. You're paying extra for all-wheel drive in the Murano. It's not a cheap option to get, and obviously, whenever you are on a tough surface, it's going to get you through and power those four wheels to give you the traction you need. But again, I just found myself being underwhelmed with the all-wheel drive system in this, and there's a lot of other competitors that have very good all-wheel drive systems, and so it's not something you need to settle for, and unfortunately, just to me, it wasn't very well done. So that's my second complaint. My third complaint is something that might just come down to it being winter time, and oftentimes a combination of either the roads getting a little rougher with extra new potholes, and also just shock absorbers just not functioning quite to the full bandwidth that they usually do whenever it's a little bit warmer. I just found that the ride was a little bit bumpier than I remembered, and again, could be the type of roads I'm on, but the suspension it oftentimes just feels a little unrefined, and like I'm kind of like it's not able to compensate fully for the kind of roads that I'm driving on here. Again, I'd have to drive one of these again in the warmer temps to really see, because I didn't really have an issue with the ride on the first drive. It's just, driving this compared to some of the others that I've driven that this competes against. Santa Fe has a smoother ride. Crown Signia had a smoother ride. CX-70 had a smoother ride. Admittedly, I was driving all three of those in mostly warmer weather, although Santa Fe was also during the wintertime here for the hybrid version, and that still seemed a little bit softer than this. So if you want the softest ride, I don't think this is quite soft enough. It is certainly soft, but I'd like to see them go even a little softer on the dampers personally for the type of vehicle this is, that again is not trying to be sporty. And I think also it's partially down to these wheels. The Platinums here have these larger wheels. If you go down to smaller wheels and have a little bit of a thicker sidewall on the tires, that could potentially help you out a little bit and give you a smoother ride. So maybe something worth trying out. Try a mid-grade trim if you don't mind losing some of the top features, and that can improve your ride a little bit as well. So that's my third complaint. The fourth complaint is with the ProPilot Assist driver assistance stuff. So typically Nissan's system has been pretty good in my experience, and this one was mostly good this week too, but I was kind of surprised that one time when I was driving, it was dark, but the roads were very well illuminated, and I had very clear painted road lines, but I noticed that it did go over the road lines once, and to me, whenever all those systems are engaged and it goes over the road lines, that's a failing grade in my mind. It should never go over road lines if those assists are on. It should intervene and make sure that doesn't happen, because that obviously can lead to an unsafe situation. Obviously, I let it do that just to test it with no cars around, but it's something that, again, it should not do. Now, it's not the only company that fails with that. I know with a lot of times the Hyundai, Kia, and Genesis systems even, they all use the highway drive assist function. That is another one where it lets me go over the road lines, but some of the best ones out there, again, from some of those competitors, don't let you do that. The Toyota system will really fight you on that. The Mazda system will kind of nudge you, but it will let you go over the road lines, so that's another one that they actually say they do a conscious decision to allow the driver to be more involved, and they don't do a more assertive lane keep assist like many of the others do, and a lot of the other competitors too, Subaru and all these others, usually will make sure that you stay in the lane. But otherwise, it was a good acting system. So that's the fourth complaint. Now, before I get into the fifth complaint, I first want to talk about fuel economy. So fuel economy in these is rated at 21 mpg in the city, 27 on the highway, and 23 combined, which is basically the same fuel economy as the old V6 powered one, even though we have a turbo 4-cylinder under the hood here. I think part of that efficiency equality is due to the fact that this 9-speed auto sucks a little bit more efficiency that the CVT would have provided if people were cool with that, but they weren't. So I think it's just something that this is the way that they knew people wanted this to be, and so as a result, you really get no fuel economy gains here. And so as far as my experienced fuel economy here over the course of the week, going around this corner again, we'll see same deal. It's so repeatable how every single time I just went in a loop and I went around that same corner once again, and same deal where it's not downshifting enough. But anyway, so as far as my observed fuel economy here, I'm getting 20.4 mpg, and I will say that I did do a little more highway driving than usual, so I was hoping to get a little closer to the combined figure, but it is also frigid, freezing cold temperatures. That's going to be a bad recipe for good fuel economy. The denser air, a little bit more idling on my behalf as well, and those types of things are just gonna kill it. So honestly, I'm okay with the fuel economy, because I typically, even in normal warmer driving, oftentimes do 1 to 2 mpg less than the city rating, and again, a little more highway this time than my usual driving. But to be only a half mpg away from the city rating in the dead of winter, I'll take it. I still would love to see a hybrid option like many of the competitors offer or come standard with, but this one clearly is not going to be the fuel economy king. If you care about fuel economy, you're better off than the competitors. But my final complaint, and this is a niche one, it only applies to people that have car seats in the back for kids. But Nissan, they kind of focused on making this a kid-friendly and family-friendly vehicle with like the doors that open basically 90 degrees, and they made a conscious effort to make this a little more, better suited for families. But then they did a strange thing, and the other car companies are starting to do this as well. I don't know if it's a cost-cutting thing or what, but we have integrated rear headrests for the outboard 2 seats. And so what that means is whenever you're using the rear tether anchor there, you're going to be ruining those headrests with clamping down and strapping down that rear anchor up over the headrest if you want to actually properly install it. And that's not great. And so like what I did here with our daughter is I put her in the middle here, where you do have a traditional headrest that still pops up, strangely enough. I'm not sure why they did that for the middle and not for the outboard ones, but so I put her in there, and thankfully we do have 3 anchors there in the back, so you're able to put 3 across here in this if you really wanted to try, or just have that option for the middle, which I'm thankful they included that. But it just means that, in my opinion, if you don't want to ruin the rear headrest, you only have the option of installing 1 car seat really in this vehicle. Obviously, if push comes to shove, you trash the headrest and you do what you need to do, but just not great from an ownership standpoint. You put a car seat in the back of there for a few years, then you take it away, and then you're going to have this foam that's going to probably be permanently deformed. Maybe it'll go back to its own shape, eventually, but just not an ideal situation, and something that used to never be a problem with rear headrests, and all of a sudden a lot of companies are starting to go to this kind of a style for some reason. I know it's a niche thing. Very few people actually put car seats in the back of cars, but for those that do, just know this is not going to be the best choice in my opinion as far as that goes. So that's the 5th and final complaint here. So overall, I really enjoyed my week with the Murano here. I will say though, because of the transmission frustrations, because of the lackluster MPG, as much as I really like this vehicle, to me, I would still rather have the CX-70 if you don't mind the larger size. If you want a smaller size and you're open to different shaped vehicles, the more wagon style of the Crown Signia and the Hyundai Santa Fe, especially the hybrid version that I was very impressed with recently, if you're cool with those different shapes, I'd take all 3 of those over this. They come in at the same price point or even a little bit less. They give you the same equipment or more, and they all, I think for the most part, give you better fuel economy, or at least equal fuel economy to this. But if you want the more traditional shape, or if you just really love the styling of the Murano, I mean, it is very cool. Even with this thing being caked with salt, that beautiful blue paint did shine through still, and it still is a really cool looking car for sure. So obviously cars are subjective. It's not always just an objective thing of ticking boxes and value and all that. There is still a lot of appeal here. Again, I really love this interior design. I love the blue seats, the very nice pattern on them here with the cross-stitching kind of quilting stuff. There's a lot of impressive things here for sure. So I don't want to minimize the Murano. Just my constant cross-shopping car reviewer brain, just for me, this wouldn't be my pick, but still a great pick nonetheless, and I'm so happy we finally have a new Murano. But anyway, that's all of my thoughts here on the 2025 Murano. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments below. Huge thanks to Nissan for providing me here with this vehicle to review for you guys today. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Be sure to watch that full review or a review of those competitors if you're interested.